These two teams are both bottom 4 in points allowed, but the Commanders just played Buffalo and Philadelphia. Here's your stat of the game. DJ Moore has 5 catches of 20 or more air yards in 4 games. That is tied for the second most in the NFL, tied with Tyreek Hill. Only Justin Jefferson has more. DJ Moore, 5 catches of 20 or more air yards. The Commanders have allowed the second most receptions of 20 or more air yards. They're getting beat deep over and over. Week 1, not so bad. Week 2, 3, 4, that was Denver, Buffalo, and Philadelphia just destroying Washington deep. You guys really like DJ Moore. He seems like he's a must start. I think he's like top 15 for everyone, 16th for Jamie. 15th in PPR. So yeah, start Moore.
Start DJ Moore.
How do you feel about, the Bears passing game with number 3 tight end Cole Kmet and Moore and Fields?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kmet's a starter at tight end. He's tied with DJ Moore for the season in terms of team target share. Chase Claypool's out of the picture, and so it's kind of consolidated a little bit in terms of the total targets. So I still don't think Justin Fields is going to be throwing for 275 yards or anything, but he should be okay.
So coming off that big game as the start of the week, you guys have him closer to 10th, 12th, something like that. So Dave, who are some quarterbacks you'd start over Justin Fields?
So I'm still working through my quarterback ranking, so this is all in pencil, but Richardson's going to be ahead of him. I think Jordan Love should still be ahead of him. He's taking on Las Vegas. It's a much easier matchup. Brock Purdy, I currently have ahead of him, and Russell Wilson, I have ahead of him. A couple things to keep in mind. First of all, bye week, so we don't have Justin Herbert. Second of all, I want to trust Fields. He had this amazing game, but it was against Denver, and if Chicago isn't the worst defense in the NFL, then Denver is. Those are the bottom 2. Those are the matchups you want your players to be going up against right now. And it's not like Washington's defense is great. You talked about how they're getting burned by the deep ball. That's like the only thing that really helps me out when it comes to Justin Fields, because Fields has been good throwing the deep ball this year. I'm nervous to start him, but I don't know if I can find 12 other quarterbacks on a bye week that I'll confidently take ahead of him.
How about Jordan Love at the Raiders on Monday night? Or just
said that I would take Love over Fields as of now.
My bad. How about you, Heath?
Yeah, in 6-point I would. In 4-point I'd rather start Fields.
Brock Purdy against the Cowboys.
Said
Fields.
That one too. Purdy over Fields.
I paused. I was looking something up.
It's all good. I do that all the time. I'm sorry.
All right.
Hey, quick word on Kmet.
Oh yeah.
Heath mentioned this, but it's really true. The target share for Kmet the first 3 weeks of the season, these are games where Chase Claypool was playing, 17.9%. So pretty good for a tight end, but not great. Last week, without Claypool on the field, 28.1% target share, exactly what you're looking for. And snaps in the first 3 games when Claypool didn't play, the target share was over 35% for Cole Kmet. I think he'll be the number 2 option in this passing game. We're also not seeing Fields run nearly as much as we did last year. Last week, only 2 designed runs. And maybe that's just a byproduct of taking on Denver. But without that rushing upside, that kind of hurts Fields a little bit, in my opinion, but it helps his targets. It's why I'm confident in DJ Moore and why I don't hate Cole Kmet this week, even though the matchup is not exactly easy for him.
You guys did, well, yeah, that's the thing. The Commanders, last year they were great against tight ends, and so far this year they're number 1 against tight ends. It seems like a strength of their team. You didn't give a whole bunch of names that you're starting over Kmet that I'm about to ask you about again, did you?
No.
Okay.
No.
So Jake Ferguson against the Niners or Cole Kmet?
I've got Ferguson.
Kmet.
Cole Kmet or Dallas Goedert?
Kmet.
I've Goddard 1 spot higher.
Cole Kmet or Darren Waller at the Dolphins?
Kmet.
Waller's higher.
Cole Kmet or Daniel Jones, Superflex?
Daniel Jones.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. How do you feel about Khalil Herbert? I thought he might be a little bit higher in your rankings coming off the 18 carry, 4 catch performance, 22.2 fantasy points against the Broncos. And Washington, they're okay against the run. They're 15th against running backs, 4 yards per carry, 4.1 yards per carry allowed. Really good in the passing game, though. They don't give up a lot in the passing game, the running backs. Heath, how do you feel about Khalil Herbert? And actually, do you like him better or worse than Brian Robinson?
I prefer Brian Robinson. Better matchup for him. Think pretty similar type roles. Robinson is a high-end number 2 running back. Herbert, a low-end number 2 running back. But they're both solid starts as number 2 options for me.
again, there's bye weeks, there's injuries at running back, so Khalil Herbert kind of falls into that range. The Commanders have actually been awesome at limiting yards after contact against running backs, and only 8 missed tackles this year against running backs. These are stats that hurt Khalil Herbert quite a bit. And last week was just the first time all year that he had a favorable game script. It was good to see him get a lot of work. I don't know if I can guarantee that he'll get the same amount of work against Washington.
Well,
it's not just bye weeks for me, though. I'd start Herbert. I mean, Miles Sanders will be dependent on his injury status, but I'd start him over Madison. I'd start him over Gibbs. I'd start him over Ramondre. I'd start him over Damian Pierce. I'd start him over Najee.
Madison against the Chiefs.
I've got him over Najee. I agree with that one.
Yeah. Najee against the Ravens. So, yeah, I mean, the game script thing, you guys expecting this to be a close game?
Yeah.
I'm expecting it to be a sloppy, low-scoring game.
Like, I don't know how you could ever expect the Commanders to blow somebody out.
And this is not the
Or
first. I just have to disagree with one thing Dave said, and it's kind of been not just Dave, but this was not the first close game that the Bears played. Week 2, they were down by 3 points with like 3 minutes left. They threw a pick 6 against the Bucs, so it ended up being a 10-point game. But that was a close game in the fourth quarter, and Khalil Herbert had 7 carries in that game. Oh no, yeah, 7 carries. So I don't know what to
mess that game too.
I don't know what to make of it. Do they have to have a big lead for Khalil Herbert to get a ton of carries? I don't know.
I think it's gotta be something like that.
All right, the guys are being cautious with him. He's number 2, maybe flex running.
But I love Brian Robinson. I think this is an awesome matchup for him. He's close to being a top 12 running back this week. I think he is in non-PPR.
You do have him 8th in non-PPR. Jamie has him 5th in non-PPR, 7th in full PPR. Heath, you're the low guy on Robinson, but still like him at 16. So, yeah, go ahead, Heath.
I mean, like, this is a fantastic matchup, but there's still plenty of Brian Robinson concerns. Like, if you told me that the Bears came out and built a 2-touchdown lead in the first half, I wouldn't be all that surprised by it. There's plenty of ways things can go wrong for the Commanders, and they can fall behind as well. So it is a potentially great spot for him. And if they're playing ahead, I think he has 20 rush attempts and rushes for more than 100 yards and probably a touchdown. But things can go almost as bad for him as they can for Khalil Herbert.
So the Bears have now allowed 19 or more PPR fantasy points to a running back in 7 of their last 9 games. Yowzers. Would you start Brian Robinson or David Montgomery against Carolina?
Montgomery.
I've got Montgomery higher.
Brian Robinson or Alvin Kamara?
I think that was your first cough of the show.
Yeah, I know. Getting better.
Yeah, Kamara. But I've got Kamara ranked too high. I'm looking at my rankings now.
Kamara or Robinson or Ramondre Stevenson against the Saints?
Oh, Robinson by a lot.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Washington wide receivers. Do you like either one of them? You know that Terry McLaurin does not have a single red zone target this year.
And yet he's led the team in targets all 4 games and leads the team in receptions all 4 games. He's been the number 1 guy for Sam Howell. And he should have had a big game last week. Howell was off target on a deep throw to McLaurin.
That last week was one little tiny data point, but one of the things I'd been complaining about the first 3 weeks of the season is how often Washington was throwing to their tight ends and how little they were throwing to their wide receivers. And that changed last week, but it was only 1 game. I think it was a combined 17 targets for McLaurin and Dotson. Hopefully things keep trending that direction.
Yeah. For whatever reason, I mean, it's probably because teams run on them and they lose all the time, but the Bears don't see a lot of wide receiver targets. No wide receiver this year has more than 8 targets against them. I think last year they saw very few targets from wide receivers. So they weren't good against wide receivers, but they weren't that bad because wide receivers didn't get targeted that much. So I know you guys are not starting Dotson. Dotson is, just he hasn't had more than 40 yards in any game. I know he scored a touchdown.
Borderline number 3.
Mm-hmm. Like a bye week replacement. We can use that term now.
Yeah. What about McLaurin?
He's a start. Each top target earning wide receiver that plays outside like McLaurin against Chicago has found at least 10 PPR points. That includes guys that you wouldn't even think of, like Rashee Rice with 10 PPR points. Sutton last week, I think he had 11 or 12 PPR points. I think that there's a higher ceiling for McLaurin than that, but I think that that's a safe floor.
Okay.
He's borderline number 2.
Would you start Marquise Brown or McLaurin?
Literally back to back. That was a great question. I would slightly prefer Terry McLaurin at this point in the week, but it's close enough that might change by Sunday morning.
I've got Brown 1 spot higher.
How about Adam Thielen at Detroit or McLaurin?
Thielen.
I think it's got to be Thielen.
Calvin
Thielen in
Ridley.
PPR. Do you like Thielen better in non-PPR?
No, PPR for me.
PPR.
Yeah.
How about Calvin Ridley or Terry McLaurin?
Oh, I was going to have Dave look that up. I should just look it up. But
What are we looking up?
I always like the Dave looks things up in the middle of the show bits. I had Adam Pfeiffer yesterday on Dynasty, FFT Dynasty, and he was talking about how the Bills like to play a lot of press coverage, and Calvin Ridley's really struggled with press coverage.
Huge. It's been a big problem for him this year. The Falcons came out and played heavy man coverage. They were the first team this year to play a lot of man coverage against Jacksonville. And he definitely struggled with it. Christian Kirk benefited from it. And also game script really helped Jacksonville last week. They didn't have to throw much. This week could be a little bit of a different story. I don't know if I'd start Fields over Lawrence just to get into that game a little bit. I have Ridley currently over McLaurin.
What were you going to say, Heath? Was that it?
No, I was just wondering if Dave, if Buffalo is really playing a lot of press man coverage, because that's something Ridley's really struggled with.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, but they just lost their best cornerback, so they don't have AJ Terrell.
Yeah, they don't, but they do have a hell of a pass rush.
Well, can we let's focus on Calvin Ridley a little bit later, I guess, later in the week. But who do you have ranked higher right now, Ridley or McLaurin?
Ridley.
Yep, Ridley.
All right. Any interest in Logan Thomas?
No.
Any interest in the Commanders DST?
Sure.
Okay.
The Bears have given up so many points to opposing DSTs. Washington qualifies as a top 10 option.